Jesse Kelly Show. Let's have some fun. On a Monday, aren't you so happy that the work week has begun? We have a lot to talk about tonight. We, of course, have political assassinations happening in Minnesota. That's not a good thing. We have street animals shooting people at the riots, but the riots weren't that big. Why? Why were most of the attendees older? That's something that's been reported on a lot. We will discuss all that in depth. We might touch on some of the Iran-Israel stuff. I'm not going to do very much of that. Emails, fast food chains, switching up the menu, and so much more. And, of course, Medal of Honor Monday. That's about an hour from now. All that's coming up on the world-famous Jesse Kelly Show on a Monday. Now, I want to begin here. This will sound a little heavy, but it's not. It's just reality. Times change. Countries change. Cultures change. Let's talk about murder and assassination and things like that. And yes, this is kind of about what happened in Minnesota, but it's about so much more than that. In case you just now are tuning into the news, and I'm not naive enough to think that's the case, some nutjob 57-year-old man murders some lawmaker and her husband and shoots a couple other people. By the grace of God, they lived. Apparently, he had a long kill list. People who was other. All right, we got it. That's it for that. Let's set that stuff aside. Here in the United States of America, we have been unbelievably blessed for a variety of reasons. In a bunch of different ways, we've been blessed. It would take us to the end of time to talk about all the reasons we're blessed to be here. But let's talk about our political environment and how it is here versus how it has gone in other places and other parts of the world. Here in the United States of America, if you are old enough, you can still describe in detail where you were when John F. Kennedy got assassinated in Dallas. I'm not that old. I was not alive then, but I've talked to many people who were alive then. Maybe that's you. I guarantee if you were old enough, you can discuss where you were, what you were doing. I was in school. I was at work. We heard on the radio. I cried. I called my dad. Why? Why? Well, for the exact same reason, you can discuss in detail where you were and what you were doing when 9/11 happened, when the two towers were hit. Do you know why? Not just because it is this big, terrible event. Yes, that's part of it. But it's because this big, terrible event is outside of the norm in your daily life. It's outside the norm. It doesn't happen often here. We don't have presidents get assassinated all the time here. Politicians getting assassinated all the time here. We don't have dirtball terrorists knocking down skyscrapers, killing thousands of Americans all the time here. These are things that don't happen here. So when they do happen here, it rattles us. It shakes us. It's wow, man. I can't believe that happened. That doesn't happen to us. But let's think about that for a moment. Let's talk about the assassination portion of it. As I mentioned already, times change. Countries change. Cultures change. Here in America, we have not had a bunch of political assassinations compared to other places in the world, because our culture, for a variety of different reasons, has not been like that. We have looked down upon, historically, violence, especially political violence. It is looked at as something immoral, wrong. We shouldn't be that. But that's not always how it works. You know, we did Alexander the Great last week, in case you missed our last Thursday show. We did a big history thing on Alexander the Great and the battle of the siege of Tyre and all that and whatnot. Go download the podcast if you missed it. But one of the things that's amazing when I was doing all my research for it is the political culture of Macedonia, where Alexander the Great came from. People got assassinated all the time. All the time. It was the norm. The king, the ruler, the senator, it was the norm. Someone's always getting knifed. Somebody's always getting poisoned. It was how it worked. What is that? There's a year in the Roman emperor times. I'm going to screw this up. The year of the 5 emperors? Chris, is that right? 6 emperors. The year of the 6 emperors. Why do you think they had 6 emperors in 1 year? It was hazardous to your health to take that position. Cultures change, and as a country, I have some tough news for you. We are becoming, for reasons we're about to lay out, we are becoming a culture of assassination. I've warned of this before. I've talked about this before. I can see it happening clear as day when you take a step back and you look at all the assassinations and attempted assassinations in just the last 10 years or so. It's unbelievable how much it has picked up. It's not just that it happened once. This is a thing that is happening in this country. People are getting weapons. Almost always, it's a Democrat getting weapons, and they're trying to murder presidents, judges, senators, whoever, city councilmen. Why? What is happening? Why are we becoming a culture where political violence is not only happening, here's the heavy part, it's going to keep happening. And it's going to get worse. Did you know that? That horrible assassination in Minnesota, it wasn't the end of some culture of political violence. It was just another step as this ramps up. You know we're going to have another politician die, right? Violently. Many will die violently. Now let's discuss why this is. First, we cannot discount this basic fact because this is outside of politics. We'll get to the political angle of this in a moment. We cannot dismiss statistics like America's broken homes. There are lots and lots of people in this country, a much higher percentage than we've ever had before, who come from broken homes. Doesn't mean you're a dirtball when you come from a broken home, but the statistics of where your mental health will go if your home breaks, the statistics are staggering. Staggering. That if your home is broken, drug abuse, pharmaceutical addiction, diagnosis of mental illness, prison time, all these things it's not even like they double. They go up exponentially. And because broken homes have gone up exponentially in this country, we have more mentally unstable, fragile people than we've ever had. Another aspect of this, and it goes hand in hand with the first one, is the mental illness. How many people have been diagnosed with mental illness? Now consider that, and consider that number is far below the number of people who have it. Remember, those are just the people who've been diagnosed. Have you ever browsed America's intake of antidepressants versus that of other countries? It's not that we have more than every other country on earth. It's as if we, the United States of America, keep the entire antidepressant industry in business. And if we went away, the entire industry would collapse. That's how big the gap is between us and whoever's in second place. I don't know whether that means we're overprescribed. I don't know whether we are more depressed, more mentally ill than other countries. But one thing that is inarguable, as a country, we'll call it 300 million. That's not an accurate number, but we'll call it 300 million. As a country of 300 million people, The amount of mental illness in this country now is large compared to anything we've ever been. So what's that tell you right off the bat before we get to the political angle of this? We have a country full of people. All it will take is a spark. All it will take is a spark, and that powder cake's going to blow. All it'll take is the right amount of stimulus here, right amount of stimulus there, and it's going to blow. Now, that's that aspect. Let's discuss the stimulus, if you will. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a wonderful, a fantastic Monday, about 45 minutes away from Medal of Honor Monday, and we are discussing right now, in a very roundabout way, we're discussing the assassinations in Minnesota, and I realize that whole story is ongoing, and they're digging into the background and everything. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how it's not that I want us to get used to it, but we should understand and in some ways accept that political assassinations are becoming more and more common in this country. And going forward, they will be more and more and more common. Couple of different reasons. I already discussed the most base non-political reason that contributes a lot to this, our ever-increasing amount of mental illness, of drug addiction, of lack of church attendance. These things show a society that is losing its way, losing its purpose, and therefore losing its mind. And so let's imagine that I'm sitting in front of a theater full of 1,000 people. There are 1,000 people. And let's say I am angry with Red Lobster. I'm angry with Red Lobster. Not that I would ever be angry with Red Lobster, but I'm angry with Red Lobster because they've removed the Cheddar Bay biscuits off the menu, which would be devastating. I am so angry about this that I want someone to go hurt a Red Lobster manager. I stand up in front of 1,000 people and I rant and rave about the lack of Cheddar Bay biscuits, and I tell them, hey, now it's time for you to grab a weapon, find a Red Lobster manager, and hurt him. If there are 1,000 people in front of me, and they come from solid families, they have jobs, they have a purpose in life. Maybe they go to church on Sunday or a synagogue, Chris, but you understand what I mean. What are the chances I'm going to find somebody who's going to grab a weapon and actually hurt a Red Lobster manager because they took away Cheddar Bay biscuits? My chances are not good. They're not good. Maybe you get one in there, but for the most part, people are going to walk out and say, who is this wingnut on stage? I'm not going to go hurt a restaurant manager. Of course not. But what if it's 1,000 people, all of them depressed, full of anxiety, broken, sitting there snorting Xanax while I'm speaking? How long does my speech have to go on until I find somebody who's a willing participant? Until I find somebody who hears me speak and thinks to themselves, you know what? You're right. It's time to go hurt someone for Cheddar Bay. Now I want you to listen to this stuff.
Donald Trump is America's Hitler.
Yeah.
Listen to this stuff.
Really wanted to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday, then spending the money the correct way, not with a parade for a tin pot dictator wannabe, which is what Donald Trump is.
Listen to this stuff.
State representative, Democratic leader of the state legislature in Minnesota killed over the weekend, a state senator shot. How would you describe the current political atmosphere in this country this morning?
I feel like Trump has really popped the lid off the rhetoric and the sense of hate and violence and promoted this type of an environment. It's profoundly...
10 years since Donald Trump came down the escalator and announced he's running for president. And as mental illness, as our society has broken mentally and spiritually, Democrats in this country have spent 10 years telling every camera they can find that we are fighting Nazis, we are fighting Hitler, the world is coming to an end, Donald Trump is a dictator, he's going to control women. We have spent years and years and years, as mental illness has increased, telling those exact same people that they are in a fight for their very survival, that they're fighting against Nazi Germany, and that has created our culture of assassination. Not just ones in Minnesota, not just trying to blow off Donald Trump's head, not just doing things like this, not just Steve Scalise in the congressional baseball game, not just a city councilwoman in New Jersey. Over and over and over and over and over again, we've seen some deranged lunatic get motivated, find a weapon, and go either kill somebody or attempt to kill somebody. It's increasing in frequency, and it will not stop. In fact, it will get worse from here. As the mental illness continues to break and as Democrat rhetoric continues to get cranked up to 1,000, every time we turn around, there's always going to be another street animal with a weapon and nothing to live for who goes hunting to hurt somebody. This is a warning to you. Be prepared to live in a country where people get assassinated. Be prepared. Did you think it was just the last 6 months? Do you think it was just the last year? You think we're almost through this? Not a chance. This is becoming who we are now. It's sad and it's awful, but that's how it happens. That's how it goes in a lot of countries that start to lose their way. Killing a politician you don't like becomes part of the culture. Horrible and sad, but it's where we're at. Let's move on. I want to talk about the riots or lack thereof, the age of the rioters. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a wonderful, wonderful Monday, about a half hour away from Medal of Honor Monday. Let's knock out the other big news story over the weekend before we get to Medal of Honor Monday and emails and other things next hour. Let's talk about the riots or lack thereof over the weekend. I know they were all over the country. I know somebody got killed in Utah at one. I am aware of these things. But did you know the reporting is out there that the communists in this country spent $2.1 billion on these riots, and they weren't that big? There was no massive protest. Why? What happened there? Now, first, we'll talk about why they weren't that big, and then we'll talk about who was there and the demographics of it. Why weren't they that big? Well, what do you know about video games? I don't know that much about video games, but you know what they are, of course. They're huge business now, an unbelievable amount of business now. My sons will tell me about this game that's coming out, and they spent $1 billion developing it, and it's just crazy. The staggering amounts of money to me. It sounds crazy to me as an old man, but they're big business, okay? And I have a buddy who is, I say he's in video games. He handles marketing for a big video game developer, okay? He's not making them. I don't even know if he plays them, but we were discussing the video game business because I found it fascinating. I don't know anything about it. And I was asking him, well, what games make money versus what games lose money? Because it seems to be very much like Hollywood. You don't know what movie's going to be a hit. You don't know what movie's not going to be a hit. And he said, Jesse, it's a very simple formula that nobody has figured out yet. They know what they need, but they can't figure out how to get it. And I said, okay, well, what do they need? He said, well, listen, there are hardcore video game people. They will buy, let's say it's a shoot 'em up video game, a military game or something like that. we know that we've got 20% of our customer base. We could put out the biggest pile of dog crap game in the world, and they're going to buy it every single time. They are the loudest ones. They're the ones in every comment section online. So they're the ones you'll see the most. They all have a YouTube channel of them playing video games. He said, but they're a guarantee. You don't need to focus on them. Then there's 80% of our customer base. He said the difference between games that make a lot of money versus ones that don't or even lose money, you have to capture the relatively uninterested masses who may buy your game or may not buy your game. You have to make sure the game isn't too challenging for them. You have to make sure the game is marketed to them. Do they even know about your game? They're not reading video game magazines like some nerd. Are you reaching out to them somewhere? Have you captured the normies, the masses, and the normies purchasing your game? That's how you make $1 billion. The normies not purchasing your game, that's how you lose $1 billion. It works the exact same way when it comes to all political movements, all of them. In whatever country, at whatever point in time in history, political movements operate in the exact same way. We'll make this about the left because we're talking about the riots and how could you spend $2.1 billion? And they just didn't make a lot of noise. I know there was a bunch of video, but some of the crowds were like 7 people. And some were bigger and bluer areas, but they didn't really do anything. It didn't go anywhere. What happened? Well, we already know, because you and I have discussed it many times before, the communists are professional rioters. They believe in it. They always have. They've always operated in this way. They did the same thing during the Bolshevik Revolution. This is how communists operate. They believe in taking to the streets and making a bunch of noise. Sometimes it's vandalism and murder. Sometimes it's a bunch of noise. They believe in getting out in the streets. Democrat politicians to this day always are talking about, we got to take it to the streets. We got to fight in the streets. That's how communists think, okay? So we know there are always going to be communists in this country who will show up at any protest you are giving locally. Most of them are paid, but even the ones who aren't paid, they are your 20%ers, your hardcore ones. You can get on Facebook and say, we're going to meet at the local library and we're going to beat a Trump piñata. Ah! See you there Saturday. And you have your 20%ers who will show up every single time because that's what they do and that's what they've always done. They're your guarantee. But that will not move the meter. That will not move the needle. The protest will never be big enough if you only have the professional communists making their stupid signs, sipping on their soy lattes, and screaming death to America while they torch American flags. That is not how you make waves. You know how you make waves? Remember George Floyd? Remember when he died? Do you remember the size and scope of those riots? Can be easy to forget now, but we as a country, we lost operational control of either huge parts of American cities or at least city blocks worth. In Minnesota, they lost control of parts of that city so badly, they burnt down a police precinct. Remember Chaz, it was known as, in Seattle? The city of Seattle lost operational control of several city blocks to the street animals. The size and scope of those riots was unbelievable. Why? Because Norm and Norma joined in. It wasn't only the professionals. Norma, sitting at home, already angry because you're stuck at home with COVID and your dumb mask on, angry because you just had your 10th stroke after your booster shot. You turn on social media, you turn on the news, you see a sweaty black guy calling for his mom under the knee of a white police officer, and it just ginned up in outrage in enough people that it got bigger than the 20% of commie street animal-based people who show up at everything. It brought in Norm. It brought in Norma. Corporate America got involved. People posting things on social media. We had riots with corporate sponsorship across the country. It made such big waves that it led to U.S. senators like Tim Scott pushing federal police reform, U.S. senators like James Lankford trying to get the names of military bases changed, statues pulled down across the country. To this day, you can visit the George Floyd statue in New York City, where he wasn't even from. How did it get that big? It went beyond the normal street animals with no life. The street animals who will show up for $20 in a Domino's pizza anytime you call for them. It got to the masses. The masses got outraged too, and they took to the streets. Enough of them took to the streets, so much so that it changed law enforcement policy, jailing. It changed our legal policy in many jurisdictions around the country, legal policy that hasn't changed to this day. So what happened Saturday? Where'd all those masses go? We'll talk about that next. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a wonderful, wonderful Monday, only 10 minutes away from Medal of Honor Monday, where we will, of course, honor one of America's heroes like we always do. We'll get to emails next hour and communist China getting involved in our policy, Randy Weingarten stepping down from the DNC, so much more still to come on the Jesse Kelly Show. But we're discussing the lack of riots on Saturday. The communists spent $2.1 billion organizing riots all over the country. It was a one-day thing. It fizzled out. What happened? The masses didn't buy in. You must have the masses buying in to move your political movement forward. Remember, Bud Light, actually Chris brought this up during the break. It's a great example. Bud Light did not lose all that money, scramble, fire people. They're trying still to this day to build up their American brand again. That didn't happen because of you or me. We wish it did. We're the hardcores. We're the hyper-informed. I already wasn't good. The second I saw a tranny advertising Bud Light, I said, well, I'm out. That's gross. You did the same thing. But it wasn't you and me. The masses rejected Bud Light. As we've discussed before, dudes, non-political dudes, my friends, they got in on it. Bud Light became a way to call your buddy gay. It did. I know who's bringing the Bud Light this Saturday with my non-political friends. Once it hit the masses, it got beyond the hardcores like you and me. Once it hit the masses, Bud Light was toast. That was it. Because that's what they needed. Why were the riots so small on Saturday? It's because the communists abused the masses a lot recently, and the masses have now rejected them. The masses got abused during COVID. Remember, America bought in to all the fear. America did. Right, left, middle. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you did for a while, then pulled out of it, but none of this matters. It's not about you personally or me personally. The masses of this country bought in. They were afraid. They wanted a mask. They wanted to stay home. Someone give me a shot. I don't want to die. The masses bought in. Enough of the masses bought in. But after they bought in, soon they looked around and the local city council was taking down the outdoor basketball hoops. Soon they were given these ridiculous mandates and ideas and having to take booster shots. Soon, the masses, after they showed up got abused. And they started to chafe against that. And then that led right to the Floyd protests, which we already brought up. The masses showed up. Yeah, that was wrong. But then they figured out, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like it's about justice for anybody at all. This feels like it's about communist savagery. This feels like it's about destroying policemen. This seems like it's about turning a bunch of dirtball criminals loose from the masses got abused for showing up. They showed up thinking they were protesting something, which they really weren't, but thinking they were protesting something. And then the next day they woke up and Aunt Jemima's face was getting taken off the pancake mix. And they looked around and said, this doesn't seem legitimate. Now, what the communists did with COVID and with George Floyd, the communists burned up the last of his credibility with the masses. Even with $2.1 billion to fund and organize signs, street riots, they're all across social media getting people to show up. $2.1 billion, and they still couldn't get it translated to the masses because the Democrat brand has gone the way of Bud Light, where it's not just you anymore rejecting it. It's not just me anymore rejecting it. Now the masses reject it. But there was a group that bought into it, at least somewhat. I shouldn't say a group that bought into it. Let's talk about the demographics of it. We're going to talk about why every single street reporter, it's even been printed in major magazines and things like that by now, they were all referencing the advanced age of the people who did show up at these things. What is that about? I'll tell you what, we'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to do some emails. We're going to discuss why that happened. Why was it all old people at the No Kings riots? Before we get to that, Jesse, I listen to you every day via Amazon Music. Chris, I didn't even know you could listen on Amazon Music. That's amazing. I'm not surprised, though. What, Chris? You have excellent taste. Why can't we prosecute the organization that's paying these rioters? It's so obvious. Why, Jesse? Well, remember, this stuff gets complicated, one. Two, did they commit a crime? Remember, a lot of this activism we see, you already know that it's paid for. You know that it's paid for with taxpayer money, and that fills you and me with rage. We get enraged at that. But when you elect Democrats in this country at any level, the Democrat you elect will go to the public treasury that's in their control, whether it's Los Angeles or California or America itself. They will go to the treasury that's now in their control, and they will seek out and oftentimes find legal means to open up that treasury to fund America's communist revolution. And the sad part of it is paying for riots in this country, in most instances, is not only legal, it's sanctioned by America's Democrats. That's what happens. We want things to be illegal that are not illegal, and they're not illegal because we keep electing Democrats in the country. Democrats are going to get elected, and they're going to figure out how to steal money from your wallet and hand it to their political allies. If you keep electing Democrats, that will continue to happen in the United States of America, and they'll make it legal. Remember, these people are lawmakers. When you elect corrupt lawmakers, the laws become corrupt. And eventually you end up with what we have now. The largest criminal organization on the planet is the United States government.